Okay, Siman Shim Mem Beis. Bein Hashmoshos Mutalas is Dvarim Shenes Shosru Chazal Mishum Gezerah. Says the Mechaba. Kol HaDvarim Sheim Asurim Midivrei Seifrim. All things which are also midrabanan. Lo Gozra Aleim Bein Hashmoshos. The general rule is that Chazal will not gozer on these activities at Bein Hashmoshos. So, for example, Friday afternoon, there are certain drabonans from Bein Hashmoshos, from Shkia through till Nacht. Certain things will not apply. These gezeres will not apply. V'ayin el siman reish samachalaf v'soif siman shin zayin v'hush yehid shem dvar mitzvah eidoichag. There's got to be some need for it. So, for example, there's a dvar mitzvah or there's some necessity. Ketzad. Here's an example. Mutar lo bein hashmoshos la'alis be'ilan. We're allowed to climb a tree, which ordinarily, of course, you can't do on Shabbos because it's a gezerah. You might come to take off a branch or whatever it may be. Or loshut al pnei hamayim, or you can't to swim in a sea. Lahavi lulav a shofar, in order to bring a shofar or a lulav. So, for example, if you've got you've got a shofar which is up on a tree, or you've got a lulav on a tree. Ordinarily on Yontav you can't do that, and even though it's a deraisa and to blow the shofar and to shake lulav, and climbing a tree is a drabonon, nevertheless we're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. But bein hashmoshos you're allowed to do it. That's the point of this siman. V'chein moirid meha'ilan, and so too to come down from a tree. Now, ordinarily, if you're stuck on a tree on Shabbos, you're not allowed to come down. It's a gezerah of Chazal. But if it's bein hashmoshos, we allow you to come down from the tree. It's erev she'asol, to carry an issa drabonon of hitzah, for example, to carry something from the Carmelists, the erev that you did, so that you're allowed to access it, and therefore it will be a functioning erev. V'chein im hoya tarud, or person is tarud v'nechpez l'davashu mishum shvus, and he's very worried that he wants to finish something off, which is an issa drabonon. Mutar bein hashmoshos. And for the same reason, if it's past Shkia and you realize you didn't light Shabbos candles yet, you can't light it yourself because it's Sofik Laila already, and therefore it's a Sofik Deraisa. But you're allowed to tell a non-Jewish person to light Shabbos candles for you. Okay, let's see the detail in the Mishnah Berurah. Sif Kot Nalef. Kol Advarim. Lishna Techol Lav Dafka. When it says Kol, it's Lav Dafka. Diyesh Dvarim She'asurin Midivrei Sofrim. There are some drabonons for Gozra Aleim Bein Hashmoshos Af L'Tzorech Mitzvah, that even Bein Hashmoshos we're not allowed to do it, even for a mitzvah. For example, Kagoyin Hamavur Lekaman B'Siman Tov Tes Sif Gimel B'Shulchan Aruch V'chein Lahave Pochus Me'arba Amas. Another one is when you're not allowed to carry something Pochus Medalad Amas. And Bein Hashmoshos they were makbid, even then you can't do it. Or Kamosh Muv Sham B'Magen Avram B'Shem Harav HaMagid V'Hatam, and the reason is Mishum Deim Kroivim Lovel Deim Melacha Gemura Deraisa, because there are some activities which are very serious drabonans, because they're very similar to deraisa. So, for example, carrying pachas medaladamas less than 4 hours at a time, although it's not deraisa, it's a drabonon, it's very similar, it's very close to actually proper carrying, and therefore that's the one exception. That's one of a few exceptions that you're not allowed to do, even bein hashmoshos. God's Boim Tfei, they made a stronger gezerah that even bein hashmoshos you can't do it. V'chein harbe poiskim soivrim te'ein ma'arvin erev tchumen bein hashmoshos. You can't do erev tchumen bein hashmoshos af she'u l'tzorech mitzvah. V'chein melacha she'ein tzorech legufa chamur misha is drabonon. When it's a melacha she'ein tzorech legufa, also that is more chamur than a regular is drabonon. V'also b'chol gavni bein hashmoshos, and we don't allow that even bein hashmoshos. Af im name of the etzem isru drabonon, even though the etzem issa is still drabonon. For kolshkein the Rambam who deraisa, according to the Rambam, melacha she'ein tzorech legufa is actually deraisa. V'da the kol siv zeh lo mari k'shik kibbel alav Shabbos. All of the above that you are allowed to do a drabonon for a mitzvah purpose is only when you have not been makabel Shabbos. Avol im kibbel alav Shabbos kagoin al dei mizmah sheni Shabbos u'lechadoidi bizmanenu, as we've discussed. Mavur le'al b'siman reish samachalaf she'afilu hu mebayjem, even if it is before Shkia and it's still daytime on Friday afternoon, but you've been makabel Shabbos, afilu rak hatzibur kibbel, even if the tzibur have been makabel Shabbos, she'oz chol alav Shabbos bal karcha, and therefore that sort of forces the kabbalah Shabbos on you. Also, lo lasos kol shvus ba'atzma afilu dvar mitzvah. Then you can't do even a drabonon, even for a dvar mitzvah, im lo alidei ovid gilulim, unless it's by way of a non-Jewish person. Okay, bein hashmoshos, says the Mishnah Berurah, uzmana mavua le'el b'siman reish samachalef. We discussed all the various times of how long is and what is bein hashmoshos. Reish samachalef ein sham. V'ayim b'magen avram shnistapik bein hashmoshos and what's Shabbos. Now the question is, this rule of our siman that you're allowed to do, you're allowed to violate a gezerah drabonon at bein hashmoshos for a dvar mitzvah or for other particular cases, is it only on Friday afternoon, or does it apply on Shabbos afternoon as well? Right? That's the question. Says the Sorry.
Would you like it?
Svayim b'Magen Avram shenistapik ben Hashmoshos Motzei Shabbos. He's misupik about this point. The Efshad Shulchan Aruch Mari Rag b'Erev Shabbos, because it could be that this whole simon is specifically talking about Erev Shabbos. V'shani afuka yomi me'ayule yomi, and there is a difference between coming into the day and going out of the day. The misfeika lo poka kedusha, because misfeika the kedusha hasn't gone. V'chaya odom kosav lachmin. The chaya odom is machmir that only applies on Erev Shabbos on Friday afternoon, not on Shabbos afternoon as towards Motzei Shabbos. He actually says there's no distinction and it's both allowed. And therefore you're allowed to violate a shvus in the situation of a mitzvah. The shav ben hashmoshos motzei Shabbos and ben hashmoshos erev Shabbos. Mikol makom l'maisa kosav diyesh lahachmin motzei Shabbos mishum de'ein on bekiin bizman ben hashmoshos mosai maskal azman she'enenu vada yoim. And therefore we should try and be a bit stricter, and therefore only rely on this for Friday afternoon, Ben Hashmoshos, not for Shabbos afternoon. Okay, one of the examples is Morid Mehoilan, not to come down from a tree. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Gimel, V'choshiv tzorich mitzvah, af she'ein tzorich lezeh. Now what's the mitzvah? Why is it called the mitzvah? I can understand to get a lulav, to get a shofar, that's the mitzvah. But what about coming down from a tree? Nevertheless, it's called the mitzvah. Af she'ein tzorich lezeh ata kol kach b'Shabbos, mishum d'mitchila ein ma'arvin every tuchumin el ledvar mitzvah, v'miyeh el solarido v'lavio etzlo lo yochel eruva v'hilkach tzorich mitzvah. Bringing it down will allow you to get the eruv, and of course, coming down from the tree will allow you to enjoy Shabbos properly. So therefore, these things would be allowed. Or to bring something from a karmelis, which is of course a rishus d'Rabbanon, and therefore the Hotzah would only be an Issa d'Rabbanon. We allow that. He was trying to be koine shvisa, his residence on Shabbos, in a Rishah Yochid or Rishah Rabim, which is close to the Karmelis. He doesn't bring it then, and we don't allow this to be done. Ben Hashmoshos shuzman chalus ha'erev, which is the zman when the erev is going to be chal. His erev won't be chal. V'lochein shari, and therefore we permit it. V'chein im hoyotorot. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Hey. Bolafarish bezeh hay oidoicha shekosav lel. We're coming to explain the oidoichak on the top line. The hainu, what that means. Im hoyotorot v'nechbad lezeh. The guy was very sort of harried, very fatumult. The oz bin astam nitzrich le tzorech harbe. He was there. That's called the tzorech harbe. Ushas hatchaku v'lochein hitiru lo. We allow him to do that activity. V'ayim bebe'ah hagros siman reish samachalaf v'mashim minah. Shema she'mateh ha'rambam mipnei shu torod v'nechbaz hainu k'shu shas hatchak godel. Now it doesn't mean that you're running late, and therefore it's got to be a very genuine shas hatchak that we allow violation of Nisa Rabbanon on Ben Hashmoshos. Kagoin she'rotza la'arev mipnei shu torod v'nechbaz livrech mipnei kuti. For example, he wants to make an eruv because he's being chased by a non-Jewish person. That's tantamount to a dvar mitzvah. V'tir shvus ben hashmoshos, and we allow this shvus ben hashmoshos. Dahainu afilu k'she'eruv munach alo ilan oy bekarmelis, we allow him to do that. V'nechbaz ein mashi kosavnu b'simin reish samachalaf Mishnah Berurah Seif Katan Tezayin b'shem Rashal. And lastly, we say that a ner b'Shabbos. That means that if you didn't light Shabbos candles, and you got like today, Shabbos comes in really early, and a person missed Shkia, so you can't light Hadlakas Neros after Shkia, but you can get a non-Jewish person to do it. That's the example. He b'Shabbos rotzolema sheyadlik tekav ben Hashmoshos tzorech Shabbos. You can light. You can get the non-Jewish person to light after Ben Hashmoshos before Nacht, of course. But if you want them to light on Shabbos itself after night, ze osa, because that's a deraisa, and you can't get the non-Jewish person to do a deraisa in this situation. Even if you had asked him before Shabbos. It's lav dafka for the need of a meal. That means even if you've left your bedroom light off, and you want or a particular light on, even if you're not eating there, and therefore there's less of a mitzvah for it, Ben Hashmoshos, you would be allowed to tell a non-Jewish person to turn that light on, even if that night light is not needed for a mitzvah purpose. Okay.